This is KEXP live at home. I am joined by the one and only I Self Devine, live from Minneapolis.
Peace, peace.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to finally have the follow-up conversation, you know, first one on video.
Uh-huh.
And you got this excellent new album out right now. Been loving it, man. Rituals of Resilience. And yeah, you got a performance you're going to share with us. Do you want to introduce this first song?
I don't know exactly what the first song is. It might, I think it's Lord Help Me.
It is Lord Help Me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we have Lord Help Me coming up. We had the pleasure to actually record the performance in Orko Studio. Orko Elohim is the brother who provided the soundtrack for the album, and then we also were able to go into the gallery to perform in front of the art. One of the things that was missed that Orko wanted me to bring up is that we filmed that on the year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. So right afterward, they went down to the square and paid homage. But that energy and that level of celebration, because the album is about resilience, but it's also around celebration. And so it was a blessing to be able to have the intentionality to do it during that anniversary.
Oh man, brother, thank you for sharing that. Let's get into this first song and let's chop it up about the album right after.
Let's do it.
Peace. I Self Devine. Orko Elohim. Medium Zach. Rituals of Resilience. Yeah. I stand in amazement at this occasion. No longer we caged in. Galaxies float out of spaces. On Earth, occupy spaces. Migrate many locations. This a reckoning, tapping in, checking in. On the run, being chased. Authorities in your face. The whiteness to the gaze. Hatred, fear, and the rage. Once gone, then they feel pain. Kicking the guilt and the shame. No ceilings, no walls. No borders, no laws. Everything is in flux, down, moving up, everything's off. I'm in the block, in the trap, pivot, stop and react. Lost in the ghetto, morph and adapt. Always in motion, thoughts in the act. Lord help me, break the chains and get healthy. Break the bank and get wealthy. Can't believe what they tell me. Lord help me, break the chains and get healthy. Break the bank and get wealthy. Can't believe what they tell me. Lord help me. Lord help me. Defend black women. Defend the land and black children. If we don't, we not building. Pump the brakes, we need yielding. Shadow work, we need healing. Police gun down and killing. My aura got rhythm. Resiliency, the baptism. I feel the need but lack wisdom. Rage attack the whole system. Lord help me. Break the chains and get healthy. Break the bank and get wealthy. Can't believe what they tell me. Lord help me. Break the chains and get healthy. Break the bank and get wealthy. Can't believe what they tell me. Lord help me. Lord help me. Yeah.
We cannot allow differences to separate us.
Man, that was Lord Help Me, I Self Devine, my guy from way back, Orko Elohim on the production.
Yeah, a lot of history there.
Yeah, man, me and Orko, man, just on the personal note, like I met Orko in Vancouver when I must have been 19 years old.
And you're still 19, correct?
Say again?
You're still 19? No, I'm messing.
He's messing. I'm 40 now.
I can't tell.
I'm proud of my gray hairs, brother. I'm trying to catch up with you, brother.
Hey, they're not picking up in the camera. You're looking pretty right, though.
I love it. But yeah, man, I met Orko back then. I was 19, baby face, no facial hair, and man, like it became family, man, to my crew at the time. It was called 500 Years. Orko came to Seattle with us, and we recorded a bunch of songs, man. Orko is on some of my first recordings that I've done. You know what I mean? So seeing you and him do an album together definitely felt like a full circle moment, you know? So how did you and Orko link up?
So the thing is Orko and I have a lot of history as well. And it's been a situation where very rarely have we been in the same geographical area. Like he came to Atlanta around the time when I came back to Minneapolis. So he was out there with Big Just from Company Flow, MF Doom, Science of Life. You know, when I left, so we're both from California. I'm from Los Angeles and him from Diego. He was involved in Project Blowed. I was involved in the earlier version, which was I Fresh, still with Ben Caldwell, Lamert Park, and things of that nature. So we come from the same cultural landscape of Black Los Angelesian art. You know, I don't know if I pronounced that right. So we already had history, you know, and it was a situation where we had worked with each other before on small projects. But once this opportunity came to be able to put this album together, there was only one person that I thought could do it, and it was Orko. And to me, what I really wanted to show is, you know, that us as people are not monolithic. So to me, you may see Orko as more electric and more vivacious. You know, we're one of the same, and I wanted to show the different polarities of Black men as it related to producing the album, but also knew that, you know, we both fans of Sun Ra, but definitely both fans of Fela. And even in terms of this album, you know, when I sit down and listen to his production, I mean, he has a wide swath of production. And so one of the things is that I wanted to make sure that the soundscape was reflective of the diasporic, you know, so you have jazz, you have rock, you have dubstep, you know, so I knew, and also really what I wanted to do is I wanted to showcase his production, because a lot of people only know Orko as, you know, as the MC, or only know a particular genre. Whereas, you know, I know he could do boom bap. He could, I mean, whatever it is. And so I think
jungle, drum and bass,
everything,
hip step,
all that,
electronic, hip hop, of course. So like, yeah, Orko's got it, you know?
Yeah. So that's kind of, you know, again, how it came about. And in terms of the album, initially I had been asked to potentially curate a set of drawings and paintings and things of that nature. And so for me, I necessarily wasn't sure if I was the right person, you know, and anything that I do, if people are just here to do their job and that's it, then I may not be the person to do that. But if you're trying to challenge systems, and particularly what we were trying to do is, for me, I'm not really a museum person. I'm, you know, graffiti artist and trained artist, but mainly in the streets. And, you know, museums always to me was the spoils of the conquest. And so part of this exhibit is part of a longer term relationship that an organization that I'm a part of has had, you know, around essentially decolonizing this institution to engage in a different fashion that they've done. And from what I understand, this is the first time that MIA, which is Minneapolis Institute of Art, has had an exhibit that also incorporated sound. So everyone was learning, even in terms of being able to film in the space. This is all new, but that's a part of, you know, reshaping the dynamics of who has power.
I love it so much. Let's talk a little bit more about the museum, because I read that the Rituals of Resilience album was almost made in dialogue with the art in the exhibit. Can you talk about how that came together? If it was music and then art, if it was art and then music, and where all the artists came? Because I read they're from around the entire world, essentially.
Well, definitely. So essentially what happened is we took a look at the artwork, and it was like 32 pages of artwork that we had to choose from. I chose to move away from sculptures and things of that nature, and I wanted to focus on faces. And the reason being is because when it comes to Black people, when it comes to Africans, we are so much of abstract. And I want you, it's like, if you're going to kill me, intimately look at my eyes and acknowledge me. And so I made sure to take photos, and not photos, but portraits, and there's some of the Black family in there. And part of what I recognized is that some of the artists I wasn't familiar with. And so what I did was, once I solidified the visuals, it was too easy to look at the visuals and potentially interpret what you think is going on. So once I got the visuals, I put them aside, and I went down each artist and did research on who they were, what their mission statement was. Even got to the point where initially when I was thinking about the art, I didn't want to position myself above the actual artwork. I was trying to actually be like air. You could feel it, but you can't see it, you know. And once I started to talk about I was doing research, then everyone in the museum was like, what? Can we see the notes? Like, it added a different dimension. Then once I understood who the artist was, what their impetus was for doing the art, then I just, you know, so I connected each artist with different pieces that they were saying. Then what I did is I synthesized it further and came up with several buckets. So some of the buckets that I came up with was like grand rising, identity and culture, spirituality, textures, color, sight, and sound. These were the things that were reoccurring: body movement, the feels, place and space, power. And so then from there, once I had the notes, then I started to put the album together based off of that. And so some people think that, you know, out of the 30 plus pieces that we have, that there's a song per piece, and that's not what it is. Certain songs overlap. There's, you know, like for example, even in one of the songs I talk about, like, you know, kind of walking into the water, you know, kind of coming off of the boat. And that was kind of to talk about the Igbo landing of the folks that they were like, you know what, this new world, I'd rather just drown than to submit myself, you know, in a new world, and a new world that wasn't reflective of who they are and where they're coming from. So that was the impetus. And so to me, I had to do an album in a different way that I've done it. And also it was very quick. So this album was put together in crazy circumstances, and it shouldn't have been done, you know, that quickly. However, you're talking about 3 months. That's researching, writing, recording, scratching, bringing in musicians, singers, mixing, master. But I've been at this, you know, I'm how old am I? I'm 40 something. I've been at this over 30 plus. And so I'd hope that we could be able to do that. I mean, we've been at it for long enough, you know.
You guys really knocked it out the park, man. I'm loving the results. Let's get into the next song. So as I pull up the little playlist in front of me, I got all kinds of screens just like I'm DJing. We Are Soldiers is up next. Anything you want to say about this track?
Again, I think it's just reflective of the mantra of rituals of resilience. You know, it's a fight to be in our skin, to be wholeheartedly who we are. And so regardless if you're framing it as such, we are soldiers in this war to restore our humanity and our culture and our spirituality. And so, I mean, we're resilient, man. Me and you, we already know hella stories of how we wasn't even supposed to be here, but we're here, you know, and that's reflective right. of it's our job to keep this American experiment in check.
Say that. We are soldiers. I Self Devine, Orko Elohim.
Sure indeed.
Yeah. Culture. The ways and actions. The food, clothing, and shelter. The language, the art. Over and over manifested repetitiously. You feel me? Over and over, create culture, we are soldiers, soldiers, fighting off vultures. Create culture, we are soldiers, soldiers, over and over. Create culture, we are soldiers, soldiers, fighting off vultures. Create culture, we are soldiers, a celebration for coming up. Tingling your body for when you're running up. Survival, swimming in concrete with zombies, the ambush promptly upon me. How shall I respond? Calm, peaceful, shall I bear arms? Negotiate, overthrow or appropriate, isolate, clash on sight, or we co-create. Feeling like we made it, but the cadence of the cave-in was major, full collapse. No time to relax. Flat on my back, had to adapt. The rebellion escaped, but sabotaged. Agents of oppression was at large. Steadily assume, informants in the womb, fingers in the womb. Over and over, create culture, we are soldiers, soldiers, fighting off vultures. Create culture, we are soldiers. Over and over, create culture, we are soldiers, fighting off vultures. Create culture, we are soldiers, soldiers. Over and over and over. We are soldiers, soldiers, soldiers. We are soldiers, soldiers. Culture, we are soldiers. Over, create culture, we are soldiers, soldiers. Create culture, we are soldiers, soldiers. Create culture, we are soldiers. Create culture, we are soldiers.
Man, you just talked about people getting their humanity back, and that actually links to a theme of one of the questions I had. I was going to ask it later in the interview, but it just feels right now. So I want to say something, and there's no question attached to this statement. I just want to say that a huge shift that happened in the Minneapolis community since we talked last year would have to be the fallout with a lot of members of the community and Rhymesayers Entertainment, your former label. I just want you to know I read your statement and I really appreciated it. And that's all I want to say about it, because I read the part where you said you're not making any more statements, and I respect that, but it only felt right to mention that, you know. I did want to say though, something that I love and appreciate about you and your music, especially on this album, is how often you talk about dismantling patriarchy. You feature several women artists who just kill it on several verses throughout this record. And that's something that you don't hear enough men in hip hop speak on. I wanted to know for you, like, what got you on that journey to like really confronting patriarchy on your own self and in your work? Because I know it's a lifelong journey. I'm also on that path, you know. But yeah, how did that start for you?
Well, first and foremost, I was raised by nothing but rebel women.
That's right.
So my mom and a cavalcade of wise women. So when it comes to mentors, I don't have a lot of male mentors. All of my mentors are women. That being said, that's still not enough. I can still have those mentors and have that shape and still be able to perpetuate, all kinds of isms. To me, the way I look at privilege is anything you have the ability not to think about. And so this patriarchal frame is something that has been continually revealing itself. And, my wife is an organizer. One of the things that I told people is like, so I've been a community organizer all my life, and we're not going to get into whether you're paid or not, organizing. And one of the things I said about community organizing is that if community organizing didn't come in my life, I think I could have got by being subpar, but when you're dealing with wide ranging communities, it's very difficult for me to teach or train something that I'm having difficulty on. I can't be doing financial literacy and my paperwork is done dilly. How does that work? There has to be a level of believability. And so this piece around patriarchal is something that I bumped up against and, had to do an audit. And it's something it's not a destination. It's a process. And it's a level of humility and understanding that things are complex because I'm a cis male. I identify how I was born. I'm African American, and there's still some level of disparity, but there's still a level of privilege. And then how do you, in your work, deal with the complexity in the same way that you can have someone who may be a victim and a perpetrator? I mean, things aren't really cut and dry. And so for me, we're talking about liberation. And
That's right.
For me, I understand Earth is a school for me to learn finite and for me to understand limitations. And so for me, when I signed up on this go round to be in this physical shell, I must have asked for the deluxe package because you feel me? Like, I'll be like, man, come on. I just came out of I got more to and until I'm done, this is something. So for me, I feel like it's only right, and if I get checked, I don't really take it a particular way. If I do, I'll acknowledge, oh, that really hurt, but you correct. I might need to go off to the left, really get my wound situated, and then come back into the fray based on whatever way I was manifesting, a way where males are centered. And then to me, I also see, even if me being a male of color, I can still perpetuate white supremacy, male white patriarchal supremacy. And so I have a community, I have an inner circle of women that'll come at my neck piece if I'm not handling myself. My daughter, my daughter's checked me. My wife has checked me. My youngest daughter. I mean, but that's what you want, when that's what you want. To me, if you're not willing to challenge me, to me, that's a way of love. That means that you really care about my well-being. You recognizing I'm not showing up the way in which it's reflective of my ancestral lineage. Like, hey, I'm pretty sure moms really wouldn't even me and my mom put me on the hip hop, and we had an agreement of certain things that I would say and would not say. And so even my orientation of how I got here is different than most. You know what I mean? And so it's like with everything, you standing here, you represent tons of ancestors, and we do the same. And God willing, that I could manifest and do and be everything that they want me to do. And that's reflective of, again, when we're talking about liberation, we're not just talking about Black liberation. We're talking about gender liberation. We are talking about economic, and to be in vulnerable spaces. So to me, something that's new for me, I've always been a vulnerable person, but I've also had the shields as a Black man that, it's really difficult to be in this body. But part of what is liberatory for me, and I can tell with the people that I work with, is this level of vulnerability that also is a different level of strength. But
That's right.
it don't necessarily feel good all the time, but I know it's the right thing to do.
Man, thank you for that answer. And yeah, it resonates with me really deeply, that vulnerability as strength, that I think a lot of times as men, like fighting patriarchy, we are fighting this system of domination that affects so many other people. But I think one aspect that we don't talk about enough is how it cripples our own sense of humanity, and in fighting patriarchy, you are fighting for your own humanity. What if anything would you say to young men who are hearing this interview and maybe haven't taken these steps towards self-reflection? Like, where would you say they should start?
Always with self, but part of what I think about is I think of the people who are coming to me and are correcting me. There's a level of love, there's a level of respect, and these are loved ones. These are people who I'm fighting for. And if I'm showing up in a way that is causing harm, particularly if there's not a level of intentionality, sometimes what I've learned is that at the end of the day, I did not intend to hurt you, but I did. So I'm going to focus on the outcome of what I did as opposed to how did it land? And again, these are awkward conversations. What I would also say is don't take it personal. To a degree, these are people who are carving out space that have not been carved out. Sometimes it may come heavy-handed. I would say a level of compassion. I would say, always good intentions. Sometimes the message in the correction of where I've showed up in a manner to cause harm, I might not have liked the tone of the message, but at the end of the day, that might have been that person's first time actually articulating and holding space and defending and that might have been uncomfortable. I don't know, but to me, and then so there's that, but then there's also kind of like a role as being an elder, and I'm stepping into that elder role. And part of what an elder is to be cool. You're supposed to be yogurt. You're neutralizing hot. The youth is supposed to come with the flamethrower. And so sometimes the message is different. I get burnt up like, okay, I'm still here. I got the message. And when that attitude is shown, there's a different level of reciprocity where you can see in the other person, like, muscles relax, and it's a beautiful thing, you know what I mean? And so that's all I'm in my spirit. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm causing intentional or unintentional harm. And so vulnerability, compassion, listening. Sometimes your first response isn't the right response. I do a lot of pausing, a lot of grounding, a lot of breath. Like even sometime right now, like my feet are grounded. Okay, when I hear that, and then for me, I also didn't take into consideration the magnitude and value of me speaking on allies' behalf as a cis male. Like, yo, coming from you, it means a lot. And I didn't, and I remember that happened when I did a show in Chicago, and I didn't think nothing of it. I was just bigging up my people and holding space. But then I got off. They were like, nah, that was coming from you, the way you present yourself. And so that's so to my beloveds out there, you know, look at the people who are coming asking for more. You know, some of the change that we seek is not going to be easy. You know, it's like a workout. You know, you gotta like feel that burn to be able to be in a position. So
Yeah, steel
they call
sharpens
metal on
steel.
metal.
I like how we said that at the same
Hey,
time.
you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I knew this interview was gonna be special.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, let's get to it, man. We got a couple more songs. This next one is you and Orko again. Get to it. Anything you want to say about this track?
Get to it. This is my favorite. This joint gives me goosebumps. This was an opportunity. Like, one of the things is that people kind of think they know you and your style. And I'm like, you have no idea what I'm pulling out the bag, so to speak. So this one was something that I didn't think people would expect from me, but you know, I got it in the bag. Here's another thing I'll tell you. It's the first song I wrote out of all of them. And I wrote it in my car. I write a lot of songs in my car. And it was also the first one that I actually recorded. So the first one written and the first one laid down in the studio.
You just got to it. Knocked out a whole album in 3 months. I like it.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, let's get to it. KEXP Live at Home, I Self Devine.
We've been through the plan, we've been check to check, we've been hand to hand, we've been through the fire, fingers work the land, we've been left for dead, you don't understand, struggling, defending, seeking to existence, speaking to existence, dealing with resistance for the living dead, sleeping while awake, this is a procession, you might need protection, picking and selecting, accepting, rejecting, focus on the mission, struggle is a blessing. Stressing. Entrance and an exit. Life is a projection. Let's get it. Get to it. Stay steady. Keep moving. Let's get it. Get to it. Stay steady. Keep moving. Keep moving. Feel my energy, see my empathy before they empty me, dissect, lynching me. Remember me, they tried to kill, murder and rape, but I am still resilient, built with an iron will, risking my life, paying the price, rolling the dice, freedom is a sacrifice. Black power, block power, black faith, black dollars, black pain, black problems, black gain, black scholars. Let's get it, get to it, stay steady, keep moving, let's get it, get to it, stay steady, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Let's get it. 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 Get to it. Stay steady. Keep moving. Let's get it. Get to it. Stay steady. Keep moving. Let's get it. Get to it. Stay steady. Keep moving. Let's get it. Get to it. Stay steady. Keep moving.
That was Get To It, I Self Devine, here on KEXP Live at Home. But I gotta say, man, one of the things that makes your music hit extra hard for me is knowing the amount of community organizing work that goes into it, the amount of intentionality, but also that when I hear your voice, I feel like I'm not just hearing your voice. I feel like I'm hearing entire communities that you done built with, you know, and even like diving into not just this album, but even the Disruptor Suite and the beautiful, beautiful Dismembered and Unarmed record, which I love. It feels like all of these albums are not just albums. Like it's music, but it's not just music. Like it feels like it's the result of community processes. So can you talk a little bit about those other records I just mentioned? Because I really just want people to know about them and about the processes that went into each of those records.
Yeah, Dismembered and Unarmed was a long process. And it was also Resma. So Resma and I, we go back to the Micronaut days. He was a early manager. Like Resma, who created the book, My Grandmother's Hands, the album Dismembered and Unarmed, which was the original title of My Grandmother's Hands. And we wanted to do, you know, like the regular format of the way in which books were presented is kind of dead. And so being able to kind of combine, you know, a different element to the book release and essentially, you know, the same process, which we made sure that we had songs that would parallel the different chapters. And so in order to put that together, I grabbed a handful of, you know, some of the best artists around the city and then I have this saying of a hybrid practitioner that works at the intersection of multiple disciplines. And so everyone who came did, okay, she sings, but also she's a doula and she's a gardener, you know, so no one came with just one hat. And so this was a big task, you know, because essentially what it's saying, and in my work, a lot of times when we're dealing with racial equity issues, we're dealing with it from a historical perspective, and we're dealing with it from a policy perspective, but not about how it actually sits in the body long-term, the cumulative effects and things such as epigenetics in terms of characteristics and traits and how experiences of our people could be seen as culture as opposed to a response to something that was traumatic. So there's more of what happened out of context. Here's what happened, but then, well, let me back up. There's the ramifications of what happened out of context of what happened. And so part of what it is trying to recontextualize something that has been shattered and fragmented. And my biggest regret, I think, is that Dismembered and Unarmed should actually have been an I Self album. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I didn't is because I wasn't on every song. You know, so that was one of the joints. What was the
other one was the single that you dropped. I don't. It doesn't even feel right to call it a single, but it's almost like a movement,
like an EP that was the Disruptor Suite.
Yeah.
And I've been a part of different think tanks. Sometimes I resist the urge because some of the stuff I'm bringing to the table, they're not really willing to deal with, you know. And so again, this was an opportunity to figure out, you know, because I was at the table with scientists and, you know, just different walks of life. Sometimes I'm in places and spaces be like, man, homie from South Central, Florence Kershaw's in this room. Like, what am I doing here? Like, maybe because it was rap or, oh no, actually it's my mind. And, you know, and so to me, it was a part of a think tank that was really looking at what are the potential disruptors of our democracy. And they used kind of like a steep C framework, which was, you know, how do you look at the pluses and minuses from a, see if I can remember it, societal perspective, political perspective, environmental perspective, economic, and then from cultural. And so each piece of the Disruptor Suite deals with each one of the letters of this process that futurists and folks are a part of. And so to me, you know, there was the output of the music, but it was a part of a deeper level of involvement of where can we potentially predict where there will be collapses. And for me, coming from South Central and being in an environment that is so volatile, my strategy is quite different than others because being able to be strategic was the difference between life and death. Not to be, you know, grandiose, but that's some of those things that have carried into my work, this ability to have heavy intuition and be able to look at that which isn't spoken. you said something, but it's not what you said. It's how your body reacted afterwards. You did a breath. So things I'm checking for, I know when people burp and yawn, that's a way the body metabolizes trauma. So I'm tracking differently. So it's a level of intentionality in tracking. And if there's a common thread in all of the work, that's what it is. And so a level of intentionality, and I can see the connections in things more than I can see the separation of things.
It seems like, collaboration but also community organizing and all the work that you do outside of the music has a big impact on the music you make. Is there a way the music also affects your organizing work? Does it go both ways?
Yeah, I would say case by case, even I remember when I was, in early Micronaut days. So I was born in a movement and had varying degrees of just being with my mom in different protests versus me cognizant on my own, choosing where I was going to be at. And I feel like some of the most political music that I've done, I was the least involved, really just trying to figure out my place in space, and feeling that, to a degree, some of my music wasn't really capturing some of the different nuances and struggles, So to me, an album like Obelisk Movement from the Micronauts to me is a big, broad movement. Whereas in every one of my releases after that, I've been trying to showcase the people that make up the movement, So as it relates, and I always look at my discography. So whatever I'm doing, I'm always looking at it in the totality of my whole career, So in those albums you mentioned, these are all challenges for me. Like what people don't know is that I've been keeping notes, been writing notes for albums since 2000.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So when I'm doing illegal business, I'm studying Gary Webb. I'm looking at all of the different things. I'm talking to family members. And I have all those books. Like, one of the things I'm going to be doing further down the line is actually curating a lyric book of all of my lyrics from like 96 to now with real pages of the work, thoughts behind it, even some of the notes that, so like with Micronauts, Obelisk Movement, Semi-Official, Self-Destruction, Sounds of Low Class America. It's funny because my wife actually did some note taking on and some research on Sounds of Low Class America. She's like, "Yo, where my credits at? I need,
there you go.
Need points." Like,
you get to credit her in the book. Yeah. I'm so happy to hear that you're doing that, because as I'm talking to you, like with every question in my head, I'm like, I hope he's gonna write a book one day, because there's just so much here,
Oh, for sure. To be honest, like really, so I got 3 books in me. One is, this one's gonna be the longest one, is more about me and my mother, because we came up. My mom's from Compton, and we came up in the crack era. I came up in the latter 1972 was when I was born, and that's when the Black Power era died. I was still alive to be able to see something that was dead. So going to the watchtowers, my father was involved with the Black Guerrilla family with George. So there's, all of this history, and writing about that, but really more about how we were able to survive because we were not supposed to make it. And my mom kept meticulous records of all my IEPs, all my psychological evaluations, all of my juvenile hall joints, because I went through the criminal system. I mean, I was not protected, and I was a latchkey kid. So I got everything. Like, I got monumental stories of epic proportion, like things that had drastic impact. So part of the story is kind of like the Madonna and Child, how me and my mom survived with the backdrop of what was happening culturally, economically, spiritually. And on top of it, like, I mean, I got stories of environmental racism back in the days when they had the Mediterranean fruit fly. I remember one time me and my mom got caught in a spray of myethylene. And then I had bronchial issues afterward. Straight environment. Wow. They're not doing that in Beverly Hills or whatever. Yeah. So different stories like that. So one is that book. Then there's a book on leadership. The book on leadership I probably write when I'm no longer doing organizing, because it's different tricks of the trade around kind of how the loudest person isn't the most valuable person in the room. And then there's this lyric book. And it's funny because our beloved Orko's the one. I was at a sound set and he's like, "You know what, man?"
He has a good Orko impersonation too.
"You know what, man? you should write a lyric book, bruh. I was like, you know what? I never thought of that. So I'm going to have to give him a cool little, you know what I mean? I had to put him on the royalty joint, you know what I mean? So, yeah, so I do got 3 books in me. Other than that, I don't know what else I got.
Yeah, I mean, life is long, God willing, you know?
Indeed.
Yeah, you never know what one book is going to lead to, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I have a publishing, a place to publish. So
amazing.
As a result of, you know, the success of Resba Minikin's book, My Grandmother's Hands, there's some opportunities to do some stuff on his imprint. So when I'm ready.
Amazing, man. I can't wait to see it, hear it, read it. Yeah, that's incredible.
I got a title for it too.
Are you going to drop it on him or you want to keep it close?
I could do it. I think my defense stance is my resting pose.
Bruh, like you saying that, just it gave me a image. Like my father is a Vietnam War vet, and I remember like seeing him like do the dishes like growing up. His knees were always bent, and I remember my mom asking him like, "Why are your knees always bent?" And it was like so I could jump around just in case the enemy comes. Like that title just brought that all back to me. That is a cold title, bruh.
Or like when I found myself like sometimes like gritting my teeth.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like bracing for impact.
Yeah.
Like, and I'd be like, man,
why am I
chill
doing
out.
that?
Like, loosen the jaw. Like these are small somatic reminders, you know, of even, drop your shoulders.
Yeah.
Breathe. Like,
yeah. Did you go to like a somatic like workshop? Because I hear you reference somatics a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you know, again, a lot of it was just the work. So personally, you know, most people who are organizers have had catastrophic lives. And so I've had lots of collapses. And so I've been in therapy, unfortunately, for a long period of time. But the inequities brought me to the work, but I was also broken and damaged. And you know, back to this piece of accountability and patriarchy, I was held accountable. Like, yo, I see you're accountable to the community, but when you come home, there are assumed gender roles that you're just, so again, this is where patriarchy comes into play.
Right.
Inadvertently, I'm not meaning to do that. And that's not the way I was raised, but as is racism, you know, patriarchy is so like relentless.
It's so embedded.
You don't even know, man.
Yeah.
You know, even in terms of like games I play, like, oh, that was in violation saying that, or it makes you even re-examine what does being a man mean, you know, and everything that they told you that it meant, you got to re-examine it, you know, but do you still feel strong afterward? You know what I mean? And I still feel like even in terms of like with white supremacy, without white supremacy, white bodied folks, do you still feel valued? Do you still feel, you know, even inside of this re-examining what man is, I still feel strong. I don't feel vulnerable in the way of a different level of vulnerability. You know, there's a vulnerability to get to this new reimagined place, but I don't feel attacked. I get it.
Yeah, that's real. This next song, got to get back to the music.
Oh, I forgot we got music.
We still got some more music. This is
I thought it was just me and you. There's other people watching
it feels like we're just having a convo though.
Hey, for real. Yeah.
So this next one is This Is a Spiritual. Anything you want to say about this song, brother?
This is a spiritual. So the painting, the Frank Bolden painting that I'm behind in Lord Help Me, you know, that's the whole, Africa's there twice, but it's just like the whole globe kind of spread out. And so when I heard This Is a Spiritual, the visuals I saw was just kind of as if I was traveling across the diaspora. And then also like the intro of Django when they had the Rick Ross joint. And they were in the horde, like it's a travel, it's a point, because to a degree, a lot of the similarities of folks that were some of the artists here is the situation around place and space, you know. So with some people, it was the Great Migration and the need to leave, or it was apartheid, you know. So there's always this level of movement, and this is a spiritual, is really to just remind us that everything that we do repetitiously is a form of sacredness and spirituality of the highest order.
Love it, bro. Rituals of Resilience, I Self Devine, KEXP Live at Home. This is a spiritual.
Peace, peace. I Self Devine, Oko Elohim. It's a pleasure. This is a spiritual. This is a ritual, everyday miracles, ethereal, grand and the minimal, celebration felt in the physical, devotion, time and in space, mystery, trance, light state, must stay awake, must agitate, light as a feather, must carry weight, born out of struggle with hardships, we gon' come up regardless, we know what God is, we know what love is, stay on the grind, stay up above it, no trust for the government, in tune with the covenant, subverse and illustrious, combustible substance, progress in the process, justice is a musket, one hand on the musket, one hand on the musket, click clack and I'm busting, sound like percussion, one hand on the musket, click clack and I'm busting, sound like percussion, sit back and adjusting, this is a war zone, hot jack, this is a hot box, contact, this is the climax, contract, this is the context, all bad, shut off emotion, stuck in emotion, we had the notion, create the potion, this is confusion, create the vision, no more inclusion, divine, breaking down walls, pre-existing, preconceptions, vehemently, clandestine, come and get me, clandestine, fear and envy, stolen moments on stolen land, convinced not to understand, with the upper hand, trying to reprimand, last stand with no command, last stand, no command. One hand on the musket, click clack and I'm busting, sound like percussion, sit back and adjusting, one hand on the musket, click clack and I'm busting, sound like percussion, sit back and adjusting. Yeah. That sound good. I like that.
All right, this is a spiritual, I Self Devine. Man, brother, it's so ill to me that you guys recorded this 1 year after the day that George Floyd was murdered. It's also almost exactly a year since you and I spoke for KEXP Sound and Vision. I interviewed you because it's interesting. Your name has come up. I think that was the first time we ever spoke was 1 year ago in our lives. But I had known your name probably for 20 years, going back to, when you were in Micronauts and collaborating with Jonathan Moore, may rest in peace, with Source of Labor. But in recent years, by recent years, I should say the past decade, it was like your name came up almost more in community organizing circles than it did in hip hop, So I knew, and kind of like trying to document some of the stories from afar of what's going on in Minneapolis, that you were one of the first people I needed to talk to. I wanted to ask you, how has, I guess, the movement for justice for George Floyd changed you and changed the city in the year since? Because I can tell you from experience, it's changed Seattle and it's changed a lot of places around the world. But the spotlight has kind of come off of Minneapolis a bit, and I would like us to know, like, what's really going on out there.
Like when the recession hit, to some folks, it was like, get on our level. We've been dealing with resilience and making do out of what we had. And so for me as an individual, I mean, there's a level of familiarity to it, to where it's not foreign, but there still is a cumulative heaviness. The level of change. So, for example, when George Floyd was murdered, I was just kind of numb. Same way I was numb with Philando, same way I was numb with Jamar Clark when I occupied the precinct. It's like a heavy black cloud, as if you're like inhaling black cotton. So to me, it wasn't until I started to hear murmurs of our kids. So 5 kids, 2 are out the house, a 28-year-old and a 23-year-old, but then there's a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And our 15-year-old was hella heated. I was feeling a particular way. And so then that's when I kind of got out of my numbness and then took him to ground zero. The thing for me is I still haven't gone to George Floyd Square. It's too painful for me. But I got people there and I stay in contact with people, but it's too deep for me. So out of this vulnerability we talk about, some of the work I've done, I've been able to get past my override with trauma. So things feel, so I'm actually an empath. I don't like saying that.
You've described it throughout the interview. You feel what other people feel, like,
But now it's a different way. Whereas there used to be a point in time where I couldn't cry and I would force myself like I could feel it. And now it's almost to the point where like small things, like, even when they did I'm a Lakers fan. I know that might go someplace and some other, I got some Seattle people that don't like me because, especially Jake One, he'd be at my neck, but he a diehard Supersonic fan, so I already know the demo. But, I even got a little, at the Hall of Fame ceremony, like, what's going on? So I feel a lot more, and I can, whereas I could, before I had an override and I can feel a little bit, now I feel sensations in different pieces, but the feeling of me individually changed when I had to take my son there and explain to him. I mean, literally it was like, This Is America video on loop, like, and what we did very early is we went to all the different spots and did like an analysis. So we went to South Minneapolis. We went to North Minneapolis. In terms of what happened, it's different. Whereas on the South Side, you had, if people were out on their steps getting hit with bean bags during the uprising, whereas over North, I know people who were fully armed walking by state troopers and police and nothing happened. So a different level of whatever, however you want to frame, policing. But that was I could say that I took my son down in the ground. We had bigger conversations. For me, I was mainly down there as an elder, not to tell anyone anything other than to make suggestions. And, I stopped a few fights, a few people getting hurt, and things of that nature, So to answer your question, I've been and seen this. And so there's a level of familiarity. But even inside of a familiarity, there's still different levels of like the weight on your back. Like, so to me, you have to resist the urge to become disoriented and to become despondent and to think that there's no optimism, but to me, when I think about all of the strong women that raised me, and I had an aunt call me from Cali and was like, I know you got this, like everything we built, so to me, there's a handful of us that was like, we was built for this time.
That's right.
We was built to swim upstream in concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And so in concrete, you feel me? Like you swimming in a smoothie, it's not even. And so that goes back to that resilience, man. Like, you're going to have to really break me off. You're going to have to biodegrade me, because even if my fingers left, every ounce of me is committed to the liberation of my people and humanity. So there's that piece. But then to a degree, we've known who Twin Cities is and are. And so this is now an opportunity for others to see what has been bubbling and cooking. And so for me, I can't take credit for everything. There's a handful of other organizers and organizations that have been a part of it. Now, I've been part of shaping that. But again, and it's a situation to where I always say there's no such thing as young revolution or old revolutionaries. There are old revolutionaries, but it's a handful, because there's a level of fearlessness that you need to have on the front line. And some of the stories of those who are holding space is just bananas, And so for me, more than anything, there is the anticipation of what it is that we will do in terms of the response to draconian laws, that they're overplaying their hands. Like, I drive around and there's boarded up stuff. It just, it's weird, like even in terms of like post offices and police stations, like super duper fortified. They look silly, like overarmed, part of what it is that this is a very important time right now, because the empire is weak. And part of what it is like, imagine if you're in a storm and you feel like the storm is thousands of miles, but really it's only, and to me, you know, like the Custer's Last Stand is a long last stand. So even in terms of like police existence is only to validate that system. Anyone that's all they're for. So for me, grounding myself, there's tons of different practitioners on the ground grounding themselves in abolition, community safety beyond policing in a world of zero harm.
That's right.
You know, whether it be Narcan and administering, you know, no harm Narcan packs, or a warm handoff to an organization that's their skill set, you know, so levels of partnership and coalition building, but we're ready, you know, and there's a lot of solid organizers on the ground that are on the front line risking their lives, you know, and so I'm just happy to be a part of that. And then for me, I play my position, you know, and particularly as an elder, I have to be invited into places and spaces. I don't insert myself. And that also might be a frame of patriarchy. Like, who are you? Like, hey, all due respect, OG, but we didn't really ask you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I make sure that I don't have those situations. And so I was actually invited into a space with a group of youth that was like, hey, OG, we got the fire. We know sometimes we may not be strategic. Can you put us onto some game? And I was invited into that because sometimes my love can be heavy handed, you know, and I'm even learning how to, again, that also can be framed because a lot of community organizing comes from a white patriarchal model. Like even right now, our community organizing training that has trained a lot of these community organizers, we took a hiatus because some of the tools are obsolete. And even some of the frames, when you're looking at public and private through a cultural lens, you know, certain people aren't disposed of. Whereas from a Eurocentric perspective, public and private in terms of what that means, and public meaning that when I'm in public, I don't really care about being like I'm acting for respect. And when I'm in my private, you know, those are different, you know, dichotomies that are framed, you know, sometimes best practices you need to check because it might really be guided from a capitalist lens. And just because it's the best practice and that's what you've done, you're going to have to audit, change, and reframe. So that was a long answer. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, no, you did, especially on the personal note. You know, like I would say, you know, here in Seattle, you know, I was talking to another artist organizer based here by the name of Rel Be Free, and he was talking about seeing, you know, just seeing the footage from Minneapolis of the police precinct going up in flames, and how in that moment he knew that everything was different, you know. And that was a real moment. Here in Seattle, you know, the protests went up, not to the same level as Minneapolis, but we made some headlines. There was a cop car that was lit on fire, and that image is now on T-shirts with the text that says, "This is a policy proposal." You got, you know, people like Nikita Oliver teaching open source abolition courses, you know. The conversation now that we were having for decades is, it just seems like in the last year it's become more mainstreamed, you know.
Can I say something real quick? So one of the movement studies that I'm always concerned around is co-option. And that which is innovative today may not be innovative tomorrow. I never rest on my laurels and I never celebrate for too long. And that's my bigger piece because, you know, we won in several ways, but this is a longer, I'm built for the marathon, you know, and so my biggest concern is informants inside of the way in which we move. If you don't have any informants, I mean, when you have an informant, you go ahead and give yourself a prize because you're doing something. I've had to reroute got some different practices that has to deal with referrals. You know, so if I refer somebody to you, you need to check the paperwork. And then you can circle back and get references. Well, that person just came along and they asked me questions. Oh, okay, that person was really trying to broker that relationship. And so you just met him, Gabriel? Okay, good. Say less. And then you just send them these long send off. Yeah, go down that corridor. It's a cliff. You know, so I think of co-option, and I think of informants related to the movement building work. But again, you're dealing with, you know, I don't know if I would say I was a Panther Cub, but I came up under the teachings of the Panthers and the National African Peoples Organization. And these are the things, and that's sometimes what I see missing in some of the orientation as an organizer I got, which was movement studies. What did they do in the Chiapas? How and why was it able to work? What was in the water? What was in the system? What policy? So how and why are they able to do that? If we're to do that, we can't actually duplicate it because there's all of these different dynamics in relation to like flora and fauna in terms of the ability to retain water and to produce in that regard. So
Yeah, real talk. Real talk. Man, any other lessons you want people to know about from Minneapolis in the last year before we get to this next song?
it was youth and East Africans and those who identify as them who are on the front line. You have a lot of folks who may have been homophobic, who were not on the front line, that were not supportive of the work. And I always expect some of my people to move in a particular way. Some of the people that were there are also on police payroll. And so, again, it will always be led by the youth.
That's right.
And for that matter, I'm also oriented back to the patriarchal piece of women's role in every movement. That's why I said, you know, if your movement ain't centering women and children, then something's wrong. If it's not, we not building. Pump the brakes, we need yielding. You feel me? Like, those are indicators. So if I come into a space and that's not the centering, I have to back up, because that's not a place. Because every successful movement centers, because women and children will take care of you. And the patriarchal view got us in a lot of trouble in terms of different approaches, one-sided. I'm not knocking. You feel me? I'm just
it's real.
setting it out how I see it.
Some of the stuff needs to be knocked, you know, especially.
And I'm not perfect. I could say this and still be in I want to say perpetrate, but perpetuating it. So I'm always in flux. I'm always to be corrected. I'm a continual work in progress. I haven't arrived. I'm always in flux.
That's the best way to be, man. That's the best way to be. You mentioned there were a lot of East African folks on the front line. This is actually the first time I've heard that from Minneapolis, and I'm so happy you brought it up because, you know, in the last couple of years, there's been a wild divide between Black folks who were already here and African immigrants, and it's we're all seen as Black. We're all, you know what I mean? We're all under attack from the same police. They don't look at us that differently most of the time. Can you speak to that unity? Because I know there's a huge East African population in Minneapolis, especially like that's the second Somalia, you know, huge Ethiopian, Eritrean community as well. Like, yeah. Can you talk about that?
None of us are monolithic. I mean, that was one of the frames why I wanted to. With the Rituals of Resilience, it was about the overall Pan-African experience. And so when we say the sun never sets over Africa, we're talking about everywhere where we have influence here. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, for me, some of the disconnect is not with the youth, but a lot of it, and it's not uniform, but a lot of it has to deal with the orientation, you know, as it relates to white-bodied individuals, to deal with the descendants of slaves that would prefer to get rid of us, but still feel a particular way by engaging people of color. And so what happens is when folks go through their process of coming to America, there's tons of stuff that I've heard some of my people say that they've told them in terms of don't deal with him, don't deal with her, don't deal with them. And then there's this narrative of you've been here the whole rip. I'm coming here and I'm able to get it. Like, what's up with you? So it creates different sets of dynamics. And again, you know, there's a somatic response to that. And what's missing is that time and place and space in some of my work here. Because in the Phillips community, you have East African, you have Native American. Where I'm at right now is in the home of A movement, so the Phillips community. And so there's a lot of different interpretations as it relates to fighting for resources and who deserves what, but there's not a place and space to unpack the misconceptions and the batteries that were put in our backs. And in areas where you saw Pan-African or the lack of that level of division is because they're having those conversations in these places and spaces and connecting. You know, I'll never forget, I wasn't there, but I saw a picture of a sister in a hijab. She had to be 9, and she was grabbing a canister of tear gas, tossing it.
My heart.
You feel
Wow.
me?
9.
9, but like for me, I got so much footage, man. But for me, it's just gonna stay in different places. I ain't never went public with them, but like even like I got like when you and I chop it up and I'm seeing the physical, I'll show you some stuff. And the thing that was funny is my oldest son was there too, the way I was trying to find him, but I could see the pictures. Like I was right there, but I was over here. I seen you was over here. Like where was you at? And then even for the matter, like my kids rode. Like my son was doing protection. My daughter was dropping off, mutual aid packages and food to people on the front line. And I mean, it was a family thing. We all was involved in it, but for me, I'm gonna always take lead with the youth. They know better. How can I best assist? How can I give some information? But I don't care what no one tells you. Those are the people who's on the front line. There was even points in time where like my son was telling like, hey fam, this is our struggle, man. You're going a little too hard. Like let us get something, you know what I'm saying? But they understand the struggle in this whole piece, the war that we're dealing with is in different ways where the war is the war, but where some of my beloveds are coming from, this is what it is. And so it's like, okay, this is what we doing? Let's lock in, bam. And so it was just a coalescing, and when I look at all the fiercest, most courageous organizing, it was by bi, trans, black, immigrant. I'm African American, but don't let nobody tell you different. That's what I seen from being on the ground.
I'm so glad you brought it up, man, because it's a conversation that I feel like needs to happen more about our communities building together. My family's from Ethiopia as well. My mother, she always raised me. She identified as I'm Ethiopian and I'm black. My mom is one of the earliest migrants to the Seattle area. The Ethiopian Eritrean community here is huge. There's over 40,000 of us. My mom can remember when there was 30. And she was like, the people that taught me how to survive here essentially were black folks. So that's my family. That's how I'm seen here. That's who I am. So I was raised with that mentality. Growing up is when I started and other family members started coming here and kind of having these ideas of we have to assimilate. We have to try to, be like white folks, essentially, if that's possible. We have to distance ourselves from black folks. And I've always taken like personal offense to it, and to hear those stories and to see the younger generation like really riding for each other, it's super important because I've always thought that like these two groups of people are the two groups that have what the other group need more than anything else. One group knows how to survive here better than anyone else. The other group has this connection to home and culture. And the more we can connect internationally, it's a win-win. Like it helps everyone. So.
And that's what this whole album was really about, a celebration and to name and claim Pan-Africanism, to avoid we're all part of the same with different dynamics, different sets of struggles that doesn't need to be glossed over, that needs the time and the care to be able to maneuver through the conflict and be able to figure out, how do we move? So even on the cut, what is this? It's not when I'm performing, it's not the coming for me, but on one of the cuts, I can't remember. So John Henry Clark is my uncle.
Oh, wow.
But through marriage. So my mom's sister was married. So I actually have all his records.
Wow.
As well as some of his books.
That's an incredible amount of research. Right
but he's actually speaking on, man, so this should let you know how quick we made, I can't remember the name of the cut that it's on, but it's, I can't remember. I want to say it's They're Coming For Me, but it's not. It's funny because sometimes when you make music, you have like a reference track. So I'm thinking, I can only think of it as the reference track.
Right,
but
the
it
beat
talks
was
about
named.
the human geography, but that's John Henry Clark talking about, history is a compass for the people. And that was a way to, because as it relates to Pan-Africanism, he was the first person that I heard use that language, when you think of Kwame and Kumra and that, so that was also ways to kind of lace that in there. But that was one of the commonalities, even when you look at the people who are, whether it be Kevin Beasley, or Jordan Castile, these are all folks that are reflective of the diaspora. The music is the reflective of that diaspora, our situations in different places. And so to me, hopefully in the way I'm envisioning the rituals of resilience is that full span of who we are,
Beautiful segue to this last song, Textures and Patterns. Anything you want to say about this track before we get into it?
This is the last song. This is the celebratory song. But this song is also a summary of the whole exhibit. Textures and patterns. There's woven, there's, silk fabrics, ceramics, so it's just the end of it because it's, you tell them again and tell them you told them. So this is the tell them I told them. So this is a reflection of what the whole exhibit is about.
Beautiful. Let's get into it. Textures and Patterns, I Self Devine, KEXP live at home.
Synergy of textures, sketches and photos, silk fabrics from materials, logos, gathering the colors, bathing the vivid, sights and the sounds, other true and living, relationship to color. Yes, we build pyramids, sculptures, rhythm of the black body, feel the structure. Black woman is God, energy, conductor, fluidity. Yeah, that's my mood till infinity. Fashion, textiles and the fabrics, elaborate, iridescent, interactive, sense of patterns, embroidery, ceramics, complex collages mixed with black magic. Skin glistening, the thrive is the gain. Stitch and thread together what remains. Emerald greens, aquamarines, geometric imagination, dreams. Patina, pigments and views. Frame builder for the melanated views. Villain disguise in front of your eyes. Only half of the picture, the rest is lies. I Self,
Orko Elohim,
what it do?
rituals of resilience. Bless up. Boom.
That was Textures and Patterns, I Self Devine, KEXP live at home. Man, thank you so much for your time, for your stories, for your wisdom. Before we're up out of here, can you please let people know about the exhibit? Because I know it's open almost for another year in Minneapolis.
Yes, rituals of resilience. When you come in, if you happen to be in Minneapolis, come in with your earbuds and your phone. The exhibit is supposed to be, so the exhibit in theory, when you come in there, you have a QR code, the album's downloaded, and you're supposed to walk and listen.
Nice.
I have seen people walking and listening to it. I've seen people go through it, listen to the album. So there's different ways that you get it. But if it was for me as the curator, that's the way, it is anticipated to be absorbed. When I did a walkthrough, I walked too quick through there and I had more, and I was kind of nervous. I was like, man, how's this? And it was like, no, move slower. So in the same way where you would eat food and you'd eat slower, the slowerness would actually create a different level of fulfillment and fullness by moving slow. Also, part of what it is as it relates to trauma happens really fast, but what happens when you sit through it? Sit through it. And so what happens if I stare at you? After a while, there's going to be an awkwardness. Then after a while, there's going to be a different world that opens up, And to me, racism is a social construct, but the impacts are real. So we're not going to move or get to any of the places you want to unless you're really willing as a society to have the deeper discussion. And so the way I looked at it is like, this is an amusement park ride where you can't choose and skip through the songs. Sit through our experience. Sit through our skin in a way that's not fetishizing us. Feel the struggle. feel what it is, the perplexity. Like this, when you ask me, like I've been dealing with this since I was like 5. My mom had to have a conversation with me around how to interact with police at a hella early age. That ain't the orientation you're supposed to be getting.
Right.
And so if I could say just a few things, and for me, as I was doing this exhibit, there was a few things that were very clear to me that were influences behind the scenes. The Clark doll experiment in 1939, where you had black youth pick, what doll has the more value, and you'd have black children picking the white doll. The duality, multiple layers, the double meanings of us being, I speak 2 different languages, hood, and then, so there's always a duality of living in between worlds. The Igbo landing was most important. Henrietta Lacks, the disregard for black bodies coupled with the innovation in black bodies. This main piece that's most important, which is white people invented the nigger, and if it's true, your invention reveals you, then who is the nigger? And then James Baldwin also said, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with the pain. And so this is around being able to...
That is so real. You just need to let that linger for a minute.
Should we sit with that for a hot one?
Can you say that last one more time?
Well, this is James Baldwin, not myself. I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with the pain.
Bars.
But then what are you without white supremacy? Are you any good? Are you still strong? Are you still worthy? Are you still smart? So Toni Morrison framed that. I think about Black Wall Street, and we just had a 100-year anniversary of that, as well as in this community in the Twin Cities, you had Rondo neighborhood. So 94 freeway running straight through. So if our neighborhoods are burned down, they are plowed through. So again, out of context, we've had stability, but we were either burnt, lynched. So let's put that into context. So, and then also thought about the Great Migration, and the different stages. So for me, these were like the background guideposts that helped me, like reminders embedded within there. And those references are embedded throughout the album.
I love it, brother. I love the layers, and even just like conceiving of an album as an experience that is in a room that you need to walk through to really fully absorb. Like that's
why the music is atmospheric, because I was already envisioning it being absorbed in a larger space. I had to.
But it works as an album too.
It did. So contextually is a part of an exhibit. Decontextualized as an album, and we framed it to be able to change shape and maintain integrity.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Thank you so much for your time. I could really talk to you for another hour, like easily. We didn't even talk about the Seattle history, like Cuba. Like there's so much here,
Seattle is a second home. I've got family and uncles in Seattle, cousins in Seattle, and then I've been coming to Seattle as a musician since '96, and Seattle has always shown me love. I always feel like Seattle reminds me of Minneapolis and San Francisco together, because you got the weather. And then there's always the level of synergy. But C-Town, mainly my people from the district, the CDs. And I know it's different now. It's like gentrified, like every other spot. The original Diesel.
Yeah, man. It's the spirit of the Central District will live forever, and in a lot of ways, man. There's like a black business CD renaissance happening. There's the Liberty Bank building on Union. There's affordable housing there for one, but also a ton of black businesses that have opened up during the pandemic. So there's a lot of good stuff happening, man. We're gonna have to like show you around again once you come back,
Oh no, I'm finna come. Hey, now the travel, I'm gonna make my way down there. I know my sisters will love it. Sisters and siblings.
Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much. I Self Devine. It's been a pleasure, man. KEXP Live at Home. Peace.
Discover new music at listener-powered KEXP.org.